All right, and we're back with another episode of the Next Gen podcast. So, one thing we didn't realize was going to be so hard was actually coming up with stuff to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you only have so many things to talk about scouting wise from week to week, and I think we covered the bugs pretty easy.
And honestly, we're not all that smart, so I think we've kind of shared everything we have. I guess this is the end.
Yeah. Well, it's Wednesday night at 5 o'clock, and it's been a long week. We've already scouted everything and still hauling some fertilizer, and not much has really changed in the last week. The mites are still kind of just hanging out. I haven't recommended anything to get treated yet. Didn't really see much for Western bean the last couple days. Just an egg mass here or there, but majority of fields I didn't see any. But I mean, it's still kind of early.
Yeah, I did. I did realize we skipped over one of the good miticides in the last episode, and that's hail. When you when
Yeah, no
when you have
shit.
100% defoliation in the that lower 4 or 5 leaves, the mites go away too.
When there's no leaf area there, the
Had
mites
that
cannot.
conversation today. It's
Yeah.
like, well, don't have to worry about the mites because of hail. We were just outside all week, and I don't know. It was 102 Monday.
Oh, it
It
was.
was only like 95 yesterday, so it should have felt good.
Yeah, it did. There was a big difference. Oh, it was so hot Monday.
Yeah, and then you got, or at least I did anyways, and some of the corn I was looking at, some of that earlier planted corn, just getting covered in pollen. Yeah, it's over 95 degrees, and then we realized, well, we better record another episode for the podcast that's supposed to come out Saturday, and we don't have one done yet.
Oh man, yeah, Monday was just I got 100 or maybe 101, something like that. But I mean, there was like zero breeze. That's usually what happens. Yeah. Today was like 90 with a pretty good breeze. It actually felt pretty good to be outside. Should have waited till today to scout, which I guess we did a little bit, but I mean, that was a huge difference. When we're pollinating right now, honestly, I would take this over from a plant standpoint. I think we've had better pollination at let's say 100-degree, windy, as long as we can keep up with the water on the irrigated stuff, compared to like 70 and cloudy for 4 days, because that's happened before, and I think the pollination's been worse.
Yeah, that heat during pollination is always the subject that comes up, but I honestly don't know that there's really a whole lot of correlation, at least in our area, because we cool off so much at night. I mean, even this morning I think it was like 68 degrees. I mean, and that's the warmest we've been at like 5 in the morning. So if we're getting below 70, I don't think there's a whole lot to worry about, regarding pollination and the other big thing to look at as we get into this pollination period with corn is I have seen a little bit of tassel wrapping with a few hybrids. I'm not going to name any names, but
Name them.
no,
I dare you.
I've got tissue samples. I might be showing a few nutrients as a little bit low. A lot of times in our area, it's going to be zinc or manganese or iron, with the micronutrients, especially in our, pH challenged ground. We're going to struggle to get those nutrients into the plant and available year long. So our in furrow by now is, it's either into the plant or tied up in the soil. So we're done with our in furrow. We're done with our starter at this point. Nitrogen, we've taken up about 60 to 65% at VT of what the crop needs, regardless yield goal. Just figure 65%. Okay, it's actually pretty similar with phos. I mean, we still have a fair amount of phosphorus to take up before harvest. Probably closer to 70% of our P uptake has taken place. So nitrogen and phosphorus, we still need to get those nutrients into the plant. And So this is a really good time. Like if you are going across some corn and using an insecticide or some kind of fungicide, like let's tank mix in that, especially if you have tissue samples and you know there's some nutrients you're low on. With zinc, this is a good one to talk about because I've had, I think, 4 or 5 conversations just in the last 2 days about this. Zinc, I do not like chasing foliarly. It doesn't matter what product, which company we've tried to chase it with. I just feel like maybe we'll get a spike for a little bit, but zinc's immobile in the plant and immobile in the soil. So that's why zinc's so important. And that's why we stress it early on in the year. It's like put zinc in the starter, put zinc in furrow because it is hard to move in the plant and it doesn't move very well in the soil. So foliar applications become pretty challenging. And that's definitely been our experience too with a lot of our zinc foliar product trials is that, I mean, none of them really move the needle. We might spike it for a week, but then as soon as we move tissue sampling up, if it's before tassel and we don't have an ear leaf to pull for that tissue sample, we're we're instant as soon as we pull that next upper leaf, we're instantly low in zinc again in our tissue samples. So
Well, that's why that 10, 12 to 1 phos to zinc is important too. So
yeah,
so we can get that into the plant. That's when we especially in our area with a lot of guys utilizing a lot of manure. I mean those parts per million of phos are super high and the zinc is low. We're just getting out of whack there. Um, that's our best chance for it to get into the plant, and we don't supplement any zinc, then we're kind of shit out of luck there. Really, it's really like you just said. It's hard to address foliar. So, we're kind of at where we can't get a lot of it, or where it's immobile in the soil and the plant. Like we got to put it at planting. That's kind of your best bet to get that zinc into the plant is get it in the right ratio and where the roots can get it.
yeah, I know one of the things, Brian and Darren Hefty, we listen to them a lot. They have a wealth of knowledge. Like, if you're not getting anything from our podcast or even us as agronomists, like, at least listen to their stuff. Ag PhD.
It's time for a crop nutrition plan that gets more return from every drop. Starting with Pro Germinator from AgroLiquid, a complete phosphorus fertilizer product that includes nitrogen, potassium, and iron. More than 30 years of research shows that lower application rates of Pro Germinator often outperform other sources of fertilizer. With AgroLiquid's Pro Germinator, you can apply less and expect more. Find out more at agroliquid.com.
Like, one of the things they've always said, and they've gotten a lot of backlash on it, and that it's that they want to build nutrient levels in the soil versus chasing things foliar. And I think for certain nutrients, like that's 100% right. And we've seen that, where we have tried to chase, there's a few nutrients where we've tried to chase them foliar and it doesn't matter. Like once that plant's deficient, it just seems like it's always deficient. Even if it knows it needs it, it plants are not meant, like God did not make the corn plant to take in nutrients through the leaves. So we got to understand that when we're being pitched any foliar product. And we sell foliar products, but if we think about that a little bit, I mean all your nutrition is supposed to come in through the roots. Like that's just how the plant's designed. Now it can take in some stuff through the leaves. One, it's got to have an open stomata, so you got to make sure you're cooler than 85 degrees, similar to, when you'd be spraying a herbicide. You can't be 100 degrees with the leaves curled up and expect to be able to drive a foliar nutrient in. If that stomata's closed, we're not going to get any uptake. And it's also a really short time period on when it can, when it's actually going to take in when it's actually going to take in those micronutrients too. And The last thing, I would say, which we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but like with foliar applications, we want as many droplets. We want, I mean, we almost want to mist it in there. Okay, so we want like 5 to 7 gallons an acre and 60 to 70 psi. I mean, we want many droplets. We want to blast it in there, and we don't want to be running 10 to 15 gallons an acre because then we're diluting it. So it's kind of like Roundup, and the Roundup will kill anything still.
Yeah.
It's just you can't dilute it. You know,
Right.
at 10 gallons an acre, yeah, Roundup doesn't kill pigweed. We've definitely found that out. And the reason is we're over diluting it. If you just sprayed straight Roundup on any pigweed, it would kill it still.
Yeah.
So that really it's kind of the opposite of the solution to pollution is dilution. It's like, well, here, I mean, if you want a high concentrated product, run fewer gallons of water or carrier and drive that into the plant because it's such a concentrated droplet itself.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's not about how many gallons we're running an acre for coverage. It's about how concentrated that droplet is. Okay, and with zinc, we can get we can get a little bit of leaf uptake from zinc, but at the end of the day, it's like it's only going to go into whatever leaves it got on. So zinc, when we say it's immobile in the plant, we mean it's not systemic, and that's the way. We've talked about insecticides too. They're not systemic. They can't translocate within the plant. So it's important to get that insecticide on the leaf you want to protect.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's very similar with zinc. Moving on to boron and moly. Now, those are two micronutrients that are actually really important in the reproductive stages. Okay, boron more for flowering and pollination and kernel fill a little bit, but moly's one that's been overlooked. But I think, I mean, I don't know, maybe in the last 5 years we started talking about molybdenum.
Hmm.
And I'm going to say moly so I don't
Yeah.
mispronounce. I mean,
It's easy to mispronounce.
so with moly, specifically, and boron helps with the nitrogen reductase process too. But basically what happens to corn is we get to this VTR1 stage, and now we're all about reproducing. Okay? We're still taking up a lot of nutrients from the plant, but our main function right now is to, okay, let's make babies. Okay? Let's make some baby corn. And so that it's going to take a lot of those nitrates that it's stored up in the leaves, and it's going to start to convert those into certain amino acids and proteins that it can actually use to make to make all these kernels on this ear that's starting to form um, good. It wants to be viable, it wants to be fertile. So a really important nutrient in that process, that nitrogen reductase process, is molybdenum. Okay, so moly, what we've seen from our trials, like the best time to apply moly is actually late, and it's helping with that nitrogen conversion process within the plant. Okay, because we don't want to be making the plant work harder than it has to. Okay, so if it's short moly, or if it's short boron, or if it's short potassium or magnesium, or two other important nutrients in the nitrogen reductase process, if we slow that down or stress the plant when it's already, like we said earlier, 105 degrees, that the corn plant's already got enough stress, environmental stress, abiotic stress that it has to deal with, and if we don't help it on the nutrient side, we will see dent. We will see smaller kernels with smaller test weight. Maybe maybe a few more open kernels that didn't pollinate. Okay, so that's why moly is so important. And if I was going to recommend, one product for guys to tank mix into a fungicide or an insecticide, just based off of all the tissue samples we've done, or even whole plant samples, where we've aligned those through a company we're working with right now to actually develop how many pounds are in the plant versus, no, we're not even looking at how many pounds were applied, but whole plant sample, how much is in the stalk and leaves, which we'll disclose their name later on, so stay tuned in to the Next Gen podcast. But yeah, so what we've found through all those samples is that really molybdenum is one of the biggest nutrients we're actually short in during this VT to R5 stage. Okay, so late in the season, it's important. So Molly is a big one.
What about Molly early? How big of a factor is that?
Next Gen Fertilizers is introducing Seedlink, the game-changing planter box product that's revolutionizing corn planter box products. Seedlink delivers uniform emergence like never before, so every seed gets the perfect start. It's packed with phosphorus, humic and fulvic acids, amino acids, and beneficial biology. And the best part, Seedlink is half the cost of most of the other competitive products, even with more in it. We're not just applying biology here, we're actually applying biology with a food source. Use Seedlink on your corn today and get better emergence, better results, and all for a better price. I think we started talking about Molly as being mixed in with a some kind of starter pass, whether it's like a conceal or a furrow jet placement. It can't be in furrow because it's toxic, like copper. But learning more about molybdenum, its plant function, and I think we might have, I think we might be targeting it too early when we try to put it in the starter. Tank mixed with nitrogen is going to be the best use of it because it's going to help that nitrogen conversion process in the plant. It's going to actually help it convert nitrate to ammonium and have the plant actually use it and eventually end up as a protein. So if we're applying Molly with all of our, or not even necessarily all our nitrogen applications, but at least our biggest applications, which for us in Northeast Colorado is typically, side dress, maybe starter for some guys. A lot of guys will put 40 to 50 pounds with starter. But I just feel like that nitrogen's subject to a lot more usability early on than what it is, as we get later on in the season. So you've got, a side dress application where we might be putting on anywhere from 70 all the way up to 120 pounds, depending on CCs. And then you've got, at least one big pivot application, where you're putting on 10 to 15 gallons per acre. And then late, we might not be applying, a 40-pound shot of nitrogen after tassel, but that's where that corn really relies on the nitrogen that's already in the plant, and that's what we've learned from our whole plant samples is that a lot of the nitrogen's there in the plant that it's going to use. We might still have 40% of the uptake that crop's going to need to take place yet, but it's going to start converting that nitrate that it's stored in the leaves all year. Like the corn plant knows what it's doing. It's storing it in the leaves because it's thinking grow big vegetatively, and it's only thinking that because its end goal, it already knows its end goal is to produce as much as many babies as it can.
Right.
That's
its main goal.
Yeah, it's its main goal.
To survive to next year as much as it can.
Yep. So it will, if you have excess nitrogen, which we found out, well, actually, right now with the samples we've sent in is 100% of the samples we've sent in have extra nitrate.
That's what everybody focuses on.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not a surprise.
It's really not. So it's storing that for a reason. It knows it's going to need it later. Okay, so it's getting ready right now as we get into these pollination and kernel fill stages of corn. Like it's getting ready to shove that nitrogen, and do that nitrogen reductase process. Really convert that, put it into the kernel. So that's why we want to, focus on certain nutrients now, like Molly, versus earlier on in the year. Another one, it actually caught our eye a little bit, or my eye, looking at those samples is a lot of times we'll have 3 to, I mean, all the way up to 500 parts per million potassium. Okay. That's over 1,000 pounds per acre in the top foot. Okay. Plenty of potassium, right? Usually our base saturations are, 4 to 9%, like plenty of potassium. But that was one of the nutrients that showed up constantly low on our whole plant samples. In fact, there was a couple that was the yield limiting factor. We might have been 250 yield goal, but we were 20 pounds short of K in the plant on what it should have had in it for 250 bushel corn. So it was saying, hey, your max potential right now is 235. So with that being the most limiting factor is really surprising this year. I think potassium is something maybe we need to look a little bit harder at. And I know years ago on a lot of these, especially the lighter ground, where we might have 8% base sat of K, but maybe we only have 150 to 200 pounds or parts per million, so maybe we're light on the pound side, but we're heavy on the base saturation side. Years ago, guys started, fertigating 26033 instead of 28005. So, I mean, we obviously know, on a lot of these fields, potassium is, we need a little bit more potassium than what we're supplying. And I think a lot of guys they're just surprised. So with potassium, you've got a really good response with nitrogen. So we focus on nitrogen more. And then in our area where we just have naturally potassium rich soils, we really haven't focused on it a whole lot other than, maybe putting on some 26033 through the pivot late.
Or like a small blend at starter.
Or maybe we'll put 5 or 10 pounds in a starter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's minimal.
I've heard that from some local retailers like, oh, you want to add, little potassium, 5-10 pounds. Oh, so and so uses it. Yeah, they love it. They just do it every year. Like, okay, like I guess if that's what they're doing.
Dude, those guys are actually pretty good at upsells. I would go
big time. Well, it's like, it's like, oh, extra 5-10 pounds. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's throw it in. So and so's doing it. It must be working. So let's do it. But you're right. I mean, it brings up a good point and I've had this a little bit of a conversation with our fellow Pivot Bio rep, Ty Molahan. I mean, he's really good about trying some different things, but it's like, we have a shitload of potassium in our soils. Well, that doesn't mean it's all getting into the plant either, So, and we in the hard ground out here, we've never really focused on any potassium, and even in the sand, it's kind of like, well, I'll use 26033, but it's like per gallon, that is such a small amount of potassium for what the crop actually needs.
Right. And if let's say you're fertigating 40 gallon of 26033, through multiple passes, it's like, okay,
that's
you got 10 pounds. Like,
yeah. It's not going to move the needle. I mean, it makes you feel good that it's in there, but it's really not. Like you said, I mean, it uses a bunch of potassium.
Yeah. Well, and we'll show a few of these samples up on the screen now, but it's like they're not just a little bit low in potassium. I mean, we're talking 20, 30, 40 pounds low from our yield goal because of potassium.
Which is crazy because it's like, well, there's a bunch there. Obviously, it's not getting into the plant for, one reason or another. But, that's it's a lot of people focus on NPK, but honestly, it should just be NP because everybody focuses on nitrogen and phos, but really not a whole lot of potassium because it's like, well, the soil test shows there's a bunch, and it's hard because, even if you look at the Midwest handbook or manual, whatever, it's not necessarily about the parts per million or pounds in the soil. It's about the base sats, but if you look at the base sats, they're 9 or 10%, which is, too much. So it's like, well, it's all relative to the ratios that you need, but it's like, well, I might have 100 100 parts per million, but my base ad is super high compared to everything else. So it's like, oh yeah, you don't need potassium.
Right. Well, and just thinking about it and doing the actual fertilizer math on potassium, it's like, okay, if it takes more potassiums, more pounds of potassium to produce a bushel of corn than nitrogen, we've got, uh, you know, 260 pounds of nitrogen out there for 250 bushel corn. We have 100 parts per million soil, and it's like, that's just not enough. Even if you are at 8 or 9% base at potassium, like there's not enough pounds out there. So yeah, potassium's another important one to look at. But I also think, with the exception of there's a Brandt product called Smart KB where we've actually had really good yield responses. And I used to be convinced it was the potassium in it. Applied it like VT to R1 with a fungicide or insecticide. Okay. Planes going across it. Let's tank mix it in. And now I'm actually more convinced it's the boron and the moly in that product, because um, when you look at potassium uptake and its function in the plant, it's actually way earlier. So we talked about nitrogen and phosphorus, saying, hey, we still got a lot of uptake still to go, even after, in the reproductive stages. With potassium, we're at like 90% of our uptake right now, 90 to 95. So potassium is more early. And potassium is super important. More, I know we were talking about boron and moly more as like kernel fill, nitrogen reductase process, conversion, starch, something that, is very understandable late when we're filling kernels. Okay. Test weight, dent, because corn shouldn't dent. If it dents, it's shorting something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but with potassium is a little bit different. Actually, most of your potassium, and why we don't have to continue to apply a lot of potassium, is because we leave it most in the field. After the combine goes through, it's all in the stover, it's in the leaves and the stalks. And so that potassium uptake early, when we're building this big plant, this big factory, it's mostly potassium. And that's where that potassium is going. So I every fall, we have some kind of wind event, and a lot of times it's when that corn senesced a little bit, so we've got a little bit of a weaker or brittle stalk. Sometimes we're battling fusarium or pythium stalk rot or crown rot too, so we've got a weakened plant. And what's the first thing everyone blames on when corn plant falls over? It's like, oh, it's the hybrid, it can't stand. And it's like, well, actually, that's more potassium deficiency than anything,
and possibly over nitrogen use
and over nitrogen use. Well, so I guarantee you, though, any hybrid will stand if it's given enough potassium.
Right.
Like, some might take a little bit more to gain that standability, piece, but there's really just not a whole lot of hybrids that just are completely incapable of creating a good stock if they have a good fertility program.
Especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong. So if you overutilize nitrogen, that's going to block potassium from coming into the plant. I think is that right? Am I correct?
Yeah, no, that is true. And so the reason that is because, so you got the xylem and the phloem within the stalk. Okay. That's your elevator that's moving nutrients up and down. Okay. So if if there's nitrogen parked at every single floor on that elevator, potassium can never get on. And nitrogen always, it's just it's a hormonal trigger in the plant. Like, it gives nitrogen kind of the first right of refusal. It's like, hey, you want on the elevator?
So I know you've had a few conversations with growers this week. What were they seeing? I know some we work with directly, some not necessarily. What were they calling you, asking for recommendations, or what were they looking for? Because I know they were going with a plane or fertigating. What nutrients did they show that they were low in, and what were they trying to address?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, there was a lot of manganese, zinc, iron. I would say those were the main three, and we do struggle with those a lot. I think we've definitely seen tissue samples be better putting a micronutrient package in furrow, but like I said earlier, you're still, at this point, like your in furrow's done. It's either tied up or taken up. Okay, really any micronutrient you put on before V5, like it is what it is now. So if the plant's deficient on it, you didn't put enough on. And that's why, I kind of started off saying, like, I think hefties are onto something. Like, you got to build soil levels. Like, the only corn that I've seen that's, green all the way across is where soil levels are super high, maybe a little too high
Yeah.
on manured fields.
Well,
And even guys that try to do 2 to 3 different foliar applications is like, we can chase zinc. You're not going to fix it year long with one application.
Yeah.
Same with iron. You can chase it. You're going to end up spending, $20 an acre, split across 3 different applications, and you're going to spike that tissue sample every week to 10 days. You'll spike it. You'll keep it elevated. We just haven't really seen it amount to yield at the end of the day. What we have seen amount to yield is that early on, planter or side dress application where we're banning a nutrient in a higher concentration. So we're actually putting out more pounds. I mean, it's kind of to play a little bit of devil's advocate to ourselves, in some of the higher efficiency products we use, it's like a pound is a pound with, in some instances.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. Earlier when you were talking about the phosphorus, I mean, it's a shameless plug here. I mean, there's a reason why we sell it, and so a lot of it is ProGerm from AgriLiquid. I mean that. So technically, what you said with like the infro, it's taken up, like it's gone. Maybe not with ProGerm though. Honestly, like I think that's why we have seen such a a lot of times boost in yield is because of the technology that AgriLiquid brings with the ProGerminator and what it does late, because that FOS is not tied up and it's available late and it's there now when it needs it. So I think that's why ProGerm is. I mean, that's probably our number one seller, really, and it's an easy sell because it works so well. I think that's why.
Yeah. No, I think it is. It's hard for me to be real confident in, something we're talking about 80 days after an application, right? Because
Yeah.
let's just say May 1st and May, June, 80 days. So we're 80 days from when that in-furrow or starter ProGerm was applied. Is there still some late availability there? Yeah, probably a little bit. But I still think even with ProGerm, again, it's more of a testament to how bad 1034 is as far as availability. Because that FOS, you're talking 2 to 3 weeks tops. Ideal pH, I mean, you got bad pH or bad water or, like really anything that can tie up phosphorus in the soil and make it unavailable to plant. So zinc, calcium, magnesium, which is mainly your pH, and anything, after 5 days on, an 8.5 pH soil, like that phosphorus is not going to be available in that short a time. And so I don't know if we'd really pick up those, those bushels from using ProGerminator from AgriLiquid after VT on corn. I think it's more that V5 to V14. I think it's that mid, which it is late in the season comparative to 1034, but 1034 is just that bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at somebody that's been using strictly 1034 for multiple years, probably putting on more than they need, especially in a higher pH, I could almost guarantee you they probably have 10 to 20, a P1 of 10 to 20 and a P2 of 150.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
It all gets tied up.
yeah.
No, that's a good point. But I don't know. I guess I probably tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side on what I tell guys as far as pro germ availability. I feel like 80 days is probably kind of it, even for pro germ. Could it be lingering on a little bit? Yeah, probably. But the nice thing about this time of year, and this is true with a lot of different nutrients, but especially your phosphorus and potassium solubilizers, is they like hot soil. Like they like it hot. So if you've got, if you've got an organic matter of even 1%, you are going to solubilize, 10 pounds of phosphorus. And a lot of that comes in this July and August timeframe. It comes late because it likes that hot soil. So there's a little bit of phosphorus there too.
So if you're short on boron, is it so you won't pollinate all the way to the end? It's not pollinate, pull back. It just will not pollinate, correct? That's kind of a easy sign.
Correct. Yep. If we're not pollinating the very tip of the ear,
But not tip back.
Yeah, not tip back. It just truly does not pollinate. It can be a couple of things. It can be temperature too. It can be wrapped tassels, which I mentioned at the very beginning. There are always those couple hybrids that just their nature is maybe it's fewer branches on that tassel, so they might be running a little short on the pollen drop. There's others that they stay wrapped up, and maybe you got silks out and for 3 to 4 days, and there's no pollen drop yet. So some of those are kind of the early silker hybrids, and so that you always got to take that into account too. I don't always want to say, oh, fertility is the answer. Like this is where you messed up, because there's a lot of, and we've seen specifically. A lot of those silks on the tip of the ear come out super late. And I mean, it's with every company too. It's like you'll have brown silk, and you'll scout a cornfield and it'll all be brown silk. So a lot of these hybrids will shoot out those, the tip, those silks a little too late, and there might be minimal pollen drop at that point too. So it's definitely a timing, reproductive process on that's very variety specific is what I've seen. So there is that. I think most of the corn I've looked at in the last 5-6 years can probably be related to just the genetics of the hybrid. But there is there is actually a lot of good research. Both CSU and KSU actually have done a lot of good research on boron and pollinating the very tip of the ear. If you're super deficient in boron, essentially, it's your flowering. That's the micronutrient that's going to trigger flowering. So if you're at the end of the day, like, why did you short those, or why did you not, pollinate the tip of the ear? It's because you shorted at pollen, and you shorted at pollen because you're deficient in boron. So it is a boron function too.
Very good.
Have you seen that with those late silks coming out on the tip of the ear, like a week later?
Yeah.
Drives me crazy.
I know. Well,
especially when you tell somebody like, "Oh, really good pollination!" Like everything, all the silks are brown. Like I think we nailed it.
Yeah.
You can come back next week and you're like, "What are these green silks?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of disappointing when you come back and have to tell them that after you already told them, like, yeah, pollination looked really good. I think in contrast, it's like you mentioned, it's more of a problem when those silks emerge before the tassel. Those silks are only viable for so long. Like
Right.
It's such, just like anything, and raising crops is such a timing thing. Like you miss the window, and it costs you it costs you bushels and it costs you money, you know. But that's out of your control. I mean, what are you supposed to do? You know, when we were part of the Total Acre program, they're like, oh, plant the same day hybrids, but like different flowering days. So that kind of helps cover that. But, I mean, how many guys are actually going to do that? I mean, who's actually going to plant 3 varieties in the same field?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the times it's not a big deal.
Yeah, splitting
So,
your planter with multiple hybrids is...
It's a logistical nightmare.
It makes sense.
It does, but it's,
Yeah, it is logistically hard. There's quite a few of these hybrids now that they just naturally have a 7 to 10 day window. I don't think we always pollinated that long. I mean, some of them are even up to 2 weeks. I feel like maybe that's one of the genetics that we've gotten, is that we've actually widened that window with a lot of these newer hybrids, and that's a good thing, because it does help you spread that pollen window to make sure everything gets pollinated.
Yeah, I mean, then you add,
or maybe it's just bad stands and bad emergence. Maybe that's why we have pollen drop for that long.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely what we're going to see this year. It could, gonna see tassels coming out for 3 weeks. Well, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Next Gen Fertilizers. Check us out on our website, nextgenfertilizers.com. We'll see you next week.